Good morning. I don't mean to scare anyone, but at the center of our solar system exists a cosmic monster. At the center of our solar system is an entity so large it actually comprises more than 96% of the entire mass of our entire solar system. And it is hot. It burns, and it churns, and it burps, and it spins, and it won't let anything escape. Everything seems to be stuck, revolving around it. If you get too close, you'll die. If you go outside, maybe not today, but later today, and look at it just from here, 93 million miles away, you will lose your eyesight. It is a cosmic monster. At its core, in case you haven't figured it out by now, that's the eyeball of a giant dragon. No. That is our sun, our nearest star. At its core, it's 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. You can cook a turkey at Thanksgiving pretty quickly if your oven can reach 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. 27 million degrees. Why would you ever need anything so hot? How can we be safe if at the center of our solar system exists something like this? It's a little better at the sun's surface, 10,000 degrees. Still, cook a turkey pretty quick. 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The interesting part is, at the corona, it's about 3,800,000 degrees. So the corona, if you don't know what that is, during the solar eclipse when the moon, if you were there for a total eclipse of the heart, no, a total eclipse, the ring around that moon is the sun's corona. It's this crown. And the surface of the corona is 3,800,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It is hot. And we're circling around it all the time. And the earth circles and it wobbles back and forth all the time. It's kind of scary to think that something that hot and that big exists right in the middle of where we live. Kind of scary. It's a cosmic monster. Just how big is our cosmic monster? How big is it? Maybe it's kind of small. We don't have to worry about it too much. That's not really true, right? If the sun were the size of a NBA standard size basketball, that would be the size of Earth. A little bit bigger than the size of a BB pellet. In fact, inside of the sun, you can fit 1.3 million Earths. 1.3. BTW, this is us. For you older folk, BTW stands for by the way. That's us, right there. Tiny little Earth, 93 million miles away, is an object that burns at its core 27 million degrees. Its outer corona, 3,800,000 degrees. And there's tiny little us floating in a circle around it. Sure hope it doesn't suck us in, right? We'd never survive. Speaking of threatening, how threatening actually is the sun? I mean, we seem to be doing okay, right? How many of you wake up every morning and go, oh man, the sun's going to get me today? Now, if you're really white like me on a high UV day, you might actually think that. Sunblock, hats. How threatening is this cosmic monster we have? Well, it's pretty threatening. We have this thing called solar wind. If you've never heard of it, it's protons and electrons that are getting fired off of the sun's corona surface, and they're coming at us at 500 miles a second, and they're literally just scattering across the earth. So fast, and they are electrified, they are ionized, they are dangerous. And they are firing at us all the time while you rest your little head at night on your comfy pillow and you sleep. Just know and rest well knowing that the sun is firing electrons and protons at you that have been ionized, and they're coming at you 500 miles per second. But you're okay. You have your pillow and your blanket, and you'll be all right. It's kind of freaky, right? Why is it designed like this? What is up with this solar wind? Always firing at us. Now, for those of you who know, you might also know that the solar wind, as dangerous as it sounds, it actually protects us. It actually protects us by going in one direction. It's kind of like aerodynamic. Have you ever been coming at a butterfly in your car, and the butterfly almost hits your car, and then it gets swooped over top of your car and across the backside, and it's like, oh, it's totally fine as it's kind of flopping around in the wind? You ever experienced that? Raise your hand if you experienced that. I'm sensing some low energy, and I need more energy, folks. That's solar wind. It just blows right over the top of us. But why? Why? Do you remember about a month ago when you could see the northern lights, the aurora borealis, even from here? That's part of the reason why. That solar wind just blows right over the top of us, and it actually takes with it any random radiation that might have otherwise got us. It gets caught up in that solar wind, and it actually blows it out of the way like a butterfly going over the top of your car. You're like, how did it do it? I was going 70 miles an hour. How did a butterfly escape? Something caught it before your car did and moved it safely out of the way. Solar wind sounds scary, but actually it's kind of necessary. Otherwise, we would get inundated with radiation from outer space. And we wouldn't be here, and if we were, we'd look drastically different than we do right now. The sun lets off solar flares. Solar flares are kind of scary because we have these satellites that go around the earth and help us communicate, and if you're like me, they help you get to where it is you're trying to go. Right? Global positioning satellites. They help you get to where you go when you don't know how to get there. That's me with my phone every day. But a solar flare, if it's big enough, it can actually take out some of the communication, and then, well, you're lost. And you might think, well, just how big is a solar flare? Rather than trying to describe it to you in math, I thought I'd just show you a picture. That's the sun, that's a solar flare, and that's the size of the earth compared to a solar flare. It's a good thing we're 93 million miles away and not a little closer. That solar flare would totally take us out. It'd burn us in a crisp, like that turkey at Thanksgiving in the 27 million degree oven. But we're just far enough away that the solar flares don't really get us. They can mess with us, but they don't get us. So just how close is this cosmic monster? I need a volunteer. I told you I need energy. I need a volunteer. Someone from the congregation. I was going to say audience, but we're all participants, even in sermons. I promise I won't hurt you very badly. I'm not going to throw it to you. Paul, one brave soul. Everyone say say hi to Paul. Paul, if you would, stand in front of that plant. And hopefully everyone can still hear me. If the sun were the size of this wiffle ball, that is about how far away the earth would be. Now, Paul, hold out your finger. Hold it like this. You're holding up the earth on your one finger. There you go. It's spinning around like a basketball. Imagine a grain of sand on the tip of Paul's finger, spinning around while going around me, while I'm burning at 27 million degrees Fahrenheit, how close do you think Paul wants to get to my wiffle ball sun? Not very close. Now the weird part is, if the sun shot out a solar flare big enough and it wiped out the atmosphere of Earth, you know what would happen? Well, if you survived, you would end up freezing to death. Because as hot as the sun is, it's actually not just the sun that keeps you warm at night, nor is it your blanket and your pillow. It's our atmosphere that keeps you warm, and it traps the heat from the sun, and it keeps you warm, keeps you comfortable. So we actually need our cosmic monster, but we don't just need a cosmic monster. Paul, go ahead and have a seat. Everyone give him a round of applause. Our cosmic monster is very, very close, but not too close and not too far. So, we are surrounded by danger. You ever thought about life that way? You're just surrounded by danger? I hope not, because you don't want to live your life that way. But every now and again, it's helpful to think about all the things that are happening, not just in the cosmos, but in life that are dangerous to us. When you think about the creation story in Genesis, what you find is there's danger all around, but there in that space where God made life to exist and live and thrive, it's safe there, but they believed there were waters above being held up by this vaulted dome structure, and at any minute it could let loose and all that water would come down and collapse and kill all of us. They believed there was water below them that could spring up and wipe everyone out at any moment. They had another story where they had this perfect garden, but inside that garden, there was, at the very center, there was a tree that brought death, and there was a serpent surrounded by danger all around. Even the earth is surrounded by danger. So how am I still breathing? Solar winds and solar flares and spinning around. The earth spins at 1,000 miles an hour as it revolves around the sun. That's 96% of the mass of the entire solar system at 27 million. How am I still breathing? How am I not dead? How is anything alive? Given the setting that we're located in. How does this all work? Well, we have a secret weapon. And it's called our Earth's core. We have a very secret weapon. We're still discovering exactly what this secret weapon is and how it works. This is like the science class from junior high, so forgive me, but you know the Earth has layers. The Earth has layers. It has the inner core, the outer core, the mantle, and the crust. Right? How many of you remember that from science class? How many of you are excited? We're talking about it now. All right. I'm going to keep preaching the sermon until you're excited about it. The beatings will continue until morale improves. At our inner core is actually a solid sphere of metal. Iron and nickel and a few other little things. Just outside of that is the same matter, but in liquid form. And as that liquid iron and nickel and a few other minerals are shifting and moving around inside of our Earth's core, just the inner core is about the size of the moon, just so you know. As it's shifting and moving around, it creates an electric charge and becomes ionized, and it actually creates a magnet. The Earth is a ginormous magnet. Now that'd be like, well, Rob, why are you telling me this? Because that magnet creates an electromagnetic field or a shield. And as those solar winds blow across the Earth, they hit our shield. It's very Star Trek-y. if you guys ever watch Star Trek or Star Wars or any of those star movies, they turn on the defense fields and they hit a button, the whole ship lights up in green. You're like, oh, that's magic. No, that's magnetism. And that magnetism protects us and our atmosphere from all of these dangers that surround us every single day. And when there's a massive solar flare, sometimes we'll receive more solar wind, and that northern lights or the aurora borealis, we'll see the lights even further south than we normally would because there's a bigger charge hitting us. But we're safe. This is why Earth being a magnet is why you're able to put your head on your pillow at night and go to sleep and not think about this at all. Right? You don't think about it at all because at the center of the earth there is a magnet. And that magnet is about the size of the moon. And it's protecting us. There's a shield there that protects us. Actually, there's all sorts of things that happen to keep us safe. This magnetic field is just one of them. I don't want to get into all of them because, frankly, I don't know all of them. But we're safe and we're sound, and we can come to church and we can be with one another and we can sing songs and pray and praise God for all the things that He has done and all the ways He's arranged our lives. Because we have a shield about us. Now, when I do these sermons, I really have two goals, just so you know what the two goals are. One of them is to look at God's creation and just be utterly amazed at how it all works. The other part is to look at the amazing thing God has done and see what we can learn from it for our own actual everyday lives. So again, what I'm not trying to do is say, look, Earth's a magnet. Only God can do that. That's not what I want to do. What I want to say is, look, the Earth's a magnet. What can we learn from this? And Scripture tells us that God is our shield. That's what a shield does, right? A shield protects. A shield makes things possible for you that weren't previously possible because it would have been too dangerous. They think that Mars once had an atmosphere, but that atmosphere got blown away at some point. And now if you go to Mars, you would freeze to death, even when you have a 27 million degree sun at the center. You'd still freeze to death. But God is our shield. Psalm 3 says, "O Lord, how many are my foes?" And now He had in mind actual enemies with swords and things like that. But when you look at it from a cosmic level, you say, wow, there's a lot of things out there that could get me. But they don't. How many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying to me, there is no help for you in God. But you, O Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head. I cry aloud to the Lord, and He answers me from His holy hill. See, we have a shield around us. And this psalmist seems to think that this shield that God provides will protect him from all of his enemies. And that's, well, it's a psalm, it's poetry, but we all know that that's not always true. That the solar winds hit us and solar flares happen no matter what you believe or no matter how you feel. The psalmist says, I lie down and sleep. I wake again, for the Lord sustains me. I am not afraid of 10,000s of people who have set themselves against me all around. The way of Jesus is our shield. And I like the way that Jesus talks about it, because he doesn't say, I am your shield and nothing bad will ever happen to you. You are protected from every solar wind and every gamma ray. You're protected from every threat that life has. Jesus says, no, that's not the way this shield works. It's not the way this shield works. Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, he goes through and he talks about all these very practical ways of living life. And on Wednesday nights, we've been going through the Sermon on the Mount, verse by verse, passage by passage, for probably about 3 or 4 months or so. I forget exactly how long, but just long enough. And Jesus ends his talk this way, and we're going to look at this again on Wednesday. He says, everyone then who hears these words, all these things that he's been saying to them about loving your neighbor and loving your enemy and doing unto others as you'd have them do unto you. He says, if you will listen to these words of mine and act on them, the person that does that will be like a wise man who builds his house on rock. Verse 25 is very important. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew. These are all things that still happen to you. When you say, God, I am going to live out the Sermon on the Mount, I'm going to live the way of Jesus, I'm going to be the wise man, what that does not mean is you'll never experience a storm in your life. Life is going to be just so much better and nothing bad will ever befall you if you just do these things. Jesus says, no, these things are going to happen. The cosmic rays are still coming. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall. See, the difference isn't whether or not the storms come. The difference is when you're under the shield of God, you will withstand the storm. You will make it through the storm. Your house will stand because it had been founded on rock. Of course, Jesus here isn't using cosmic illustrations. He's using everyday life illustrations. When you build a house, you obviously want to have it built on something that's not going to shift around like sand. How many of you have seen the video that floats around online? There's like a 3-story house, just the frame of it's up, and a storm comes through and the whole thing falls apart in 3 sections. It falls and falls and falls again. Poorly built. Jesus says, when you build your house, when you build your life around the concepts that I give you, your house won't fall apart when storms come. It won't fall apart. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them. You see, Christianity is not just about something you believe, it's about something that you do. You're not a Christian because you walk around thinking about being a Christian. You're a Christian because you walk around actually being one. It doesn't say, and everyone who hears these words of mine and thinks about them quite a bit. No, and acts on them. In this case, it's one who does not act on them is a foolish man. Have you ever watched someone do something really dumb and you just stood back and went, this is not going to end well, folks. Grab your phone. Record. Jesus says that's what happens when people don't listen to me. You see, I firmly believe that Jesus sees a storm coming. He doesn't say this to them because there's no storm coming. He says it to them because he knows there is a storm coming. The storm, in this case, is called Rome. And they're coming. And he's trying to show them how to live and how to be so they will survive, but they don't listen. In this case, the Roman rain fell, the floods came, the winds blew and beat against their house, and it fell. There's no shield there. And great was its fall. In Matthew 23, Jesus says this after giving them quite a few reprimands, and he'll give them more reprimands after. He's weeping over Jerusalem. It's his city. It's his beloved city. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings. And you were not willing. So Jesus says, I want to be a shield for you. If you will listen to my teachings, if you will live the way I'm asking you to live, I will be like a mother hen who's gathered her chicks together and is protecting them from the fire that's about to take place, but you won't get under my wings. You're not willing to live in my shield. The wisdom of God is the shield of God. The wisdom of God is the shield of God. We look at the earth and the cosmos, and maybe you were really amazed by it. Maybe you were like, I hate this. I don't know what you're thinking. If you hated it, don't tell me. But we can look at it and say, wow, that is amazing, the way the Earth's a magnet, that's crazy. I never thought of that before. There's a shield and these rays and it protects us, and this is amazing. Jesus is trying to do the same thing with our lives. And he wants us to be wise. Hear his words and act on them. Not just believe them. And not just go around and condemn people when they don't believe what you believe, but you actually live it. Wisdom isn't believed, wisdom is lived. I feel like I can't emphasize this enough. That's why I keep saying it over and over again in every class and every sermon. Because Christianity isn't something that you believe, it's something that you do. It's a way of life. It's how you live. It's how you move about the earth. It's how you treat others. It's how you treat neighbors. It's how you treat enemies. It's how you treat your boss. It's how you treat your coworkers. It's how you treat your children. It's how you treat your wife. It's how you treat your husband. This is Jesus' way of life, and it's something that you do. And we walk around thinking, no, it's about what I believe. It's not. What you believe, that's just the very beginning. There's a verse Paul says, he's talking to the Corinthians, and he says, I want to give you meat, but we're always stuck on milk. You remember that? That's a paraphrase, but you remember that passage? Paul can never seem to get them beyond the milk to the meat. The milk is just the thing that you believe. The meat is how that affects your everyday life and how you live. And Jesus says, I've been trying to teach you and bring you in and put you under the shield of my wings, but you will not listen. But it is a wise man that listens. Are you as amazed at the teachings of Jesus as you are by the earth being a magnet? And will you live in the shield of the wisdom of God? This is life. Solar winds and flares, they'll always threaten us. Always. And that's life too. There will always be some sort of existential threat to us. Another country amassing nuclear weapons. Or us amassing nuclear weapons. Right down to, hey, it's not raining as much as we'd like it to, and our plants aren't growing. There's always something to be afraid of. There's always a storm. There's always wind. Jesus doesn't say, follow me and you'll never have wind hit your house and it'll never rain too hard. Those things are always going to happen. Life will always be hard. The question is, will you have the wisdom to make it through? Will you live in the shield of God? With Jesus, your house will stand. Your house will stand. You can make it through the storm. It's not always easy. Sometimes it seems downright impossible. But I believe that Jesus has wisdom for us today. Not just for people 2,000 years ago, for us right now. And he's still saying the same words. The wise man hears what I have to say and does it. He doesn't say the wise person hears what I have to say and believes it. They do it. They do it. The reason it's wisdom is because sometimes Jesus says things that just don't seem, they're not easy. Right? Someone walks up to you and smacks you in the face. You say, you missed a spot. Carry this for me. I'll carry it twice as far as you want me to. Give me your cloak. Oh, here's my shirt too. Can I borrow $100? Here's $200. When we live the way Jesus has called us to live, we are living in wisdom. Wisdom that we believe and know that Jesus has passed to us. And we live it out. And when we do that, we'll make it. We'll make it through. We'll be one of the chicks that says, Jesus, protect me under the shield of your wings. The question is, will you live as Jesus has called you to live? Will you live it? Will you do it? Because quite honestly, we need more churches and communities and people who actually do it. We don't need more people to come to a church and say, yeah, I believe that. We need people to come to a church and say, yeah, I do that. I don't do it perfectly, but I do it. It's my goal. It's what I'm always trying to do. That's what we need. Will you stand in the protection of the wisdom of Jesus? Amen?